Alright, come on. What could we do with these two? No, that's an awful idea. We'll save that one for 2006. Green eyes in 2D? Yep, following Sonic Pocket Adventure's example, Sega decided it was time for the Hedgehog to return to his roots, but in his current form, since, you know, they hadn't caught classic Sonic fever yet. The Hog's 10th anniversary was rolling around, so of course, they knew they had to do something special. Enter Dimps, a company that as far as I'm aware had never made a game before entering the ring with Sega's first ever foray onto Nintendo hardware, Sonic Advance. Of course, Sonic Adventure 2 Battle would hit the GameCube pretty soon after Advance's release, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, I hated this game when I was a kid. The only Sonic game I played before Advance was Sonic Adventure DX, so when I got my hands on Advance, I was not interested because I found it inferior. I was also really bad at it, so that probably contributed to the disdain a little bit. Fast forward to last week when I was waiting for my class break to be over, I got a strange hankering to dive back into the game, and I was pleasantly surprised with what I experienced. Well, for the most part. Since the early 2000s, I've had a bit more experience with 2D Sonic, and I was able to squeeze a little bit more fun out of something I previously wrote off as mediocre. Don't get your hopes up. Sonic Advance in essence is a successor to Sonic 3 and Knuckles, albeit on a slightly smaller scale. What we have here is 7 actual zones with 2 final boss zones, as opposed to Sonic 3 and Knuckles' 14 zones, but technically that was 2 games Frankenstein together, so I don't really see a huge problem with that. An upside to Advance, though, is that it includes 4 playable characters instead of the 3 found in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. We've got our classic trio back in action, of course, and for the first time in a 2D game, we've got Amy Rose, complete with a totally unique and somewhat frustrating moveset. I guess you could say they were really trying to advance the formula. Because of all that, some people actually adamantly refer to this game as the true Sonic 4, and I can see why. It predates the actual Sonic 4 by 8 or 9 years and does just about everything better in the grand scheme of things. But then again, I think that's a bit of blasphemy. Sega labeled these games like this on purpose. You don't see people going around calling the New Testament the Old Testament too, now do ya? So we have a little bit of a story going on here, and thankfully, unlike some games that have released since, this one doesn't require any 30-minute recap videos to help you figure out what's going on. Dr. Eggman is up to no good. Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy don't like that one little bit, so they head off to stop him, and maybe find some shiny rocks along the way. That's it. Sonic Advance does not waste your time. Our 4 friends here have their word cut out for them though, as throughout Sonic Advance they'll have to traverse through some treacherous facilities, glaciers, and casinos, all before they arrive at their dastardly foe's doorstep to put an end to his scheme. First on our itinerary, we've got Neo Green Hill Zone. Though I never really understood why they called it that, because it's more beach than Green Hill for the first act, at least. We do delve more into the Green Hill-like aesthetics here and there, but I think Dimps and Sonic Team were just feeling a little nostalgic on this one. There's not too much here that'll trip you up on your first run, though. Just standard Sonic fare. You'll find yourself some badniks, some monitors, rings, springs, and that's pretty much it. There's also this really neat wall running section towards the end of Act 1, and aside from being a really nice set piece, you might just want to store this area in your brain for later. Trust me. Much like Sonic 2 and 3, at the end of Act 2 you come across a boss fight, typically with one of Dr. Eggman's crazy contraptions. The first of which is this hammer device that Eggman tries to flatten you with. Eggman doesn't really seem that into it though, because he swings the hammer really daintily and doesn't get serious about it until he's already dead. Alright, raise your hands if that scared you a heck of a lot more than MC Hammer over here. Zone 2 brings the gang to Secret Base. Well, I guess the secret's out then. This area spices things up a bit with pulleys and tight spaces. I was worried at first that this whole stage is going to be dimly lit like the starting bit, but thankfully that wasn't the case. It is a nice set piece though. This stage introduces some new movement options for the gang, including these wires you can spin across and either launch yourself up or down to grab monitors or reach new areas. We also have these blocks that rotate your character a good 360 degrees, and I absolutely love how Sonic keeps that snarky look on his face the whole time as if it ain't no thing. And there are also other various pulley-like contraptions that hoist you up to different pathways if you grab them. Less frequently, you'll also see these hooks swinging from the ceiling that are sometimes necessary for you to continue progressing down the path you're on, and sometimes they just lead to extra little goodies or alternate routes. Suffice to say, this stage is going to throw you around a lot, and it can be a little confusing since the stage doesn't really have many areas that distinguish themselves when it comes to appearance. Act 2 introduces these little steam vents that shoot platforms into the air, but if you've played Oil Ocean before, you should understand how these work. Act 2 is a bit more of the same until you reach our dedicated boss encounter with Dr. Eggman. This time he comes at you with this pogo stick mech that, again, feels about as threatening as the first boss of Sonic CD, meaning not at all. And after a few hits, Eggman launches himself into the air in an effort to crush you, which isn't an insta-kill, thankfully, and then the fight ends. Alright, why is it that these capsules are better at harming Sonic than Eggman is? Casino Paradise is up next, because of course it is! Can't have a Sonic game without a casino level, right? Thanks, Sonic 2. No, seriously, thanks. These things are fantastic, I love them. Casino Paradise is home to many of the gimmicks that you've come to know and love. Bumpers all over the place, pinball, balloons, weird gizmos that transport you from one place to the other, And of course, Sonic's name plastered everywhere, because I think deep down, Eggman really just wants to impress his nemesis. In terms of level design though, this one isn't as claustrophobic as Secret Base, but it isn't as open as Neo Green Hill. But coming from Secret Base, this one does feel a bit like paradise. The second act shows off these cool neon letters where Eggman decided that advertising for Sega might net him some brownie points, and cold hard cash of course, and we also get these strange warp holes. Never really seen anything like that in a real casino, since they typically want you to sit in one spot and never move, as opposed to traversing dimensions and possibly finding an exit. So then you just keep on losing rings to rigged games until Eggman shows himself once again, but look! He made a friend! Isn't that sweet? Eggman and his new BFF will randomly enter and exit these tubes, so you have to be careful not to get poked in the eye by this one, but you also have to get ready to give Eggman the good old 1-2. Eventually they do go a little bit faster, but it's really no big deal. It kinda reminds me of the final boss of Sonic 1 since there's a bit of a guessing element involved, but thankfully it's not nearly as insta-killy as that one. Ha! I was ready for you that time! Oh boy, okay. Now this stage here is the one that gives me the most terrifying flashbacks when I think about this game. Ice Mountain Zone is a combination ice and water level. What an unfortunate tag team. I feel like pretzels and cyanide are a better mix than that, and that would definitely be less painful. This is your typical Sonic Ice level though. There are some snow drifts here and there that make you move a little bit slower, but you can jump out of them. There are also some ice cap references, but what'd you expect? It's an anniversary game. The Penguinator also appears in this level, which makes me pretty happy, but honestly that's where my positive feelings towards this level end. You are going to be spending a lot of time underwater, and you know what that means. Bubbles aren't too hard to come by, thankfully, but I guarantee you're going to end up dying at least a few times because of the underwater platforming and stupid junk like that. Act 2 dials things up a bit and adds in yet more underwater sections, and this really scary bit where you need to jump on these oil ocean gimmicks while you're underwater. Also, do me a favor and don't jump over this spring. Somehow I fall for this, no pun intended, every single time at least once. But that is not the scariest thing about this level. The thing that has haunted my nightmares since I was a little kid is right up ahead. Eggman wisened up. He took all our greatest fears and made them a reality. Welcome to Ice Mountain's boss, Underwater Spider Eggman. This is actually where I stopped as a kid. I never made it past this. When I rolled into this area the other day, I let out an audible "oh no" when I realized what I just gotten myself into, and it still sucks, but I was able to do it this time. This thing has some serious layers to it though, let me tell you. On one hand, you might be compelled to try and attack Eggman as fast as possible to end your suffering sooner, but if you skimp out on too many chances to breathe, you're not going to be in good health for much longer. If you take it slow though, you risk being bullied by Eggman and losing your rings, and also the fight going on for far longer than it needs to. You need to split your interests between violence and breathing if you ever want to escape here. It's sort of a struggle. Well, as Sonic at least, Tails makes this boss fight look like a total joke, and that just goes to show that sometimes the kid ain't so bad. Now on to Inferior Island Zone. Not inferior in terms of how easy it can kill you, of course, but easily the lesser of the two zones that share the same name. But how could you possibly top something as iconic as Green Hill version 3? Angel Island Zone is not very fun most of the time. There are a million pathways to take, which is nice, but they're all wrought with dangerous obstacles and things that make you wish you were back in Ice Mountain. And that's saying a lot, considering I mentioned how it caused me lifelong trauma. Act 1 isn't the worst thing in the world, I guess. We get introduced to some of the gimmicks, such as fans that blow you around, clouds you bounce off like in Sky Sanctuary, and numerous irritating spike pits and regular pits. There are also these really fun platforms you have to run on to elevate or lower yourself, and by fun, I mean slow and boring. We also get sand waterfalls that act like the ones from Sandopolis, but those are pretty innocent. None of this can compare to Act 2 though, as it shows you it means business almost immediately by incorporating a bottomless pit at the very start of the level. The only thing standing between you and imminent death is mastery of these dingy little clouds, and honestly, I don't trust them. Other than that, Act 2 is just a careful trek to the end where we come face to face with... Knuckles? Come on, dude, Eggman tricked you again? What is this, like the 5th time now? Wait a second. Something seems fishy here. Wait, I got it. Knuckles doesn't wear yellow gloves. Also, I'm Knuckles. Go ahead and smack this faker around a little bit until his true form is revealed. This boss's name is Mecha Knuckles, and yes, I googled that because the robotic doppelgangers in this series tend to have very specific names for each of their incarnations, and it turns into a war zone in the comments if one is ever misidentified as another. He starts off the fight by doing a fairly decent Knuckles impression, defying physics and all that, but once he sheds his skin, yeah, I think this is where the whole fake Knuckles charade kind of falls apart. Look, we all know echidnas are weird, but I don't think they're this weird. Dispatch the faker and he blows up horrifically into a million pieces. Good night, Mecha Knuckles. Now, I fear that I'm getting into a bit of a routine by starting these level introductions with negativity, but Egg Rocket Zone is upsetting. The level is pretty unique, as it reminds me a lot of the Super Mario Bros. 3 levels that had an emphasis on vertical movement instead of the traditional horizontal movement, but does that work for Sonic? Yes and no. Since Sonic moves pretty quickly, forcing him into a variety of tight spaces with really annoying obstacles and routes that intentionally throw you back downwards and force you to redo things you've already done do not come across as fun, especially the first time through. There's no way you would know that this booster here would throw you back down a couple levels and just give you one invincibility power-up to make up for it. That's just rude. And on top of that, you're on a stricter time limit for the stage as well. When you reach certain areas, the game stops you and you see a segment that you were just platforming on break away as the rocket is flying higher and higher. This means that if you can't reach the next checkpoint area within the allotted time, Sonic is going skydiving through the atmosphere. The time limits are generous enough, but if you dawdle too much, you are definitely going to have issues. Thankfully, when you hit the next segment, you do get time added back onto the timer. Dimps aren't totally heartless, but honestly, every obstacle thrown into the stage gives me anxiety, and you'll see what I mean if you play through it yourself. All in all, it's a pretty interesting idea for a level, but it's just annoying. That's how I describe it, annoying. Once you reach the top of this beast, you enter a rocket exhaust port, and then you end up in Cosmic Angel Zone, which technically means that Egg Rocket and this only have one act each, but I kinda saw them as one zone. Now, after the test of patience that was Egg Rocket, I was expecting Cosmic Angel to be a slog as well, but thankfully it's really quick by comparison. Though we do have to deal with some gravity gimmicks here, which you know how fun those are. They're honestly not really that bad when they pop up, and I don't find them to be excessive, so other than that, it's just standard Sonic stuff, nothing really to write home about, or to write in the script either. Also, unrelated to level design, but this stage is beautiful. This whole game looks so dang good, dude. I'm just gonna come out and say it. I think the Advanced series art style is my favorite 2D look in the entire series. Yes, including Mania. The GBA housed a lot of my favorite art styles, to be honest, and I don't know if that's more of a nostalgia thing talking, but I mean, I'm definitely not nostalgic for Advance, so maybe not? Now, Eggman's newest device is actually sort of brilliant. He hides his weak spot underneath the stage, and he lets Sonic crash into spikes over and over again until he dies. But unfortunately for Eggman, Sonic weighs enough to tip things into his favor. Literally, in fact. Though the boss fight is still a bit of a struggle. If you get hit here, your rings don't stay on the platform, they just peace out. You better have some quick reflexes or else this fight is going to be even harder. Eggman also does these little speed boosts toward the end of the fight, and they can be maddening if you've got no rings left to spare. But once you've fought through it, the jig is up and you're on your way to the mysterious X Zone. Now, X Zone isn't a traditional zone, but more like a small boss rush with some familiar faces. Again, just like to point out, Sonic Advance did it before Sonic 4. First up, we've got Eggman's Gutsman, the Wrecking Ball. He loves this thing to death even though he knows it's never going to get the job done. Afterwards, he breaks out the drill car from Sonic 2. That's fun, right? We even get some nice Sonic Advance style remixes for their respective boss themes, and I am a sucker for that, let me tell you. After Eggman's finally done cashing in his nostalgia bucks, he brings out the big guns. Or whatever you want to call this, because this thing is definitely not that big, or a gun, most of the time. Eggman is totally protected of this thing, except for when he's attacking you, so you either need to wait like the patient little hedgehog you are, or you can be stupid like me and die. Don't be like me, kids. This fight can definitely drag on for a little bit, but it's not that difficult, and that's the end of Eggman for now. Assuming you don't have all the Chaos Emeralds, that is, and I don't expect you to, because where the hell are they? Back in time again, when I was a little kid, I didn't even know this game had Chaos Emeralds. Even playing it through again this time, I knew they were there, but they're hidden so well in the levels that I didn't come across even one of them on my own, despite the fact that I searched high and low for these things. Unlike Sonic 3 and Knuckles, Dimps took a step backwards when it comes to special stages. Instead of hiding several special rings around the stages, they instead elected to hide one special spring in a certain act of each zone. Want my advice when it comes to these things? Either use Tails or don't bother. As Sonic or Amy, if you even mess up a slight bit while trying to take the path to one of these things, you're usually totally out of luck and you have to reset the stage. Thankfully, I don't think it matters who you collect the emeralds with as long as you go and reconquer X Zone with Sonic afterwards. So, fly, my son. Fly. When you finally find one of these darn things, probably after looking at some guide on YouTube, you get launched into space where you're free falling down this tube area. And wouldn't you know it, surprise surprise, you're supposed to collect the amount of rings they show at the top of the screen. And it's not awesome. The GBA makes it a little bit hard to tell where exactly you're supposed to position yourself so that you actually collide with these things, so I found myself missing little clumps of them here and there, and I didn't even really feel like it was my fault. There are also these little zones that if you pull off a trick while passing through, you get bonus rings, and they'd probably save you from failure. Not that I got to experience that, though. Go through that 7 times and you've got all your emeralds. Don't bother trying to turn into Super Sonic during normal gameplay, though. we're not exactly at the point yet where Sega cared about that. Flashing back to X Zone, Sonic transitions into Moon Zone, where Eggman has built a big ol' mech and he's just floating through space. Can't have that now, can we? As Super Sonic, you gain a little air dash move, but it doesn't really get you that far. Also, you're not flying, more so just running along the ground like normal, and you jump up to hit him right in his stupid idiot face. This doesn't really feel like a Super Sonic fight, until you remember that you're relying on rings to stay alive, and then you die. And die. And die. You can rebuild your stash by hitting these robots, but unlike the underwater fight, it's really in your best interest to just ignore them entirely and bash Eggman as fast as possible to finish things up. Sonic firmly tells Eggman that his midnight spacewalks aren't okay and gives him a slap on the wrist, and then he ventures out into the great unknown, allowing his friends to believe that he probably died in the scuffle. A few days then pass, and Tails just so happens to see something shiny in the distance, so like the weak-minded bird he is, he flocks towards it, and wouldn't you know it, it's Super Sonic. Looks like he just forgot to call home and say he'd be out late. The end. Ooh boy, you know what, whatever dude, you can keep your insta-shield, spin dash, rail grinding, and weird hard-to-use air boost to yourself. I'm gonna go hang out with the rest of the gang. When playing as Tails, you do exactly what you'd expect him to do coming from Sonic 3 and Knuckles. He can fly around and find secrets for you, but he can also do this neat little tail whip thing, which probably isn't useful for many things now that I think about it. Knuckles can do little punch attacks and an uppercut combo, but again, probably not super useful for a lot of things. But he also carries over his gliding and climbing, which could be used to help find secrets, but really it's just better to go with Tails. Now, Amy being the newcomer, you'd expect they'd make her really fun to play. I'm really up in the air on that one, because on one hand, her playstyle is really interesting, but it's basically hard mode, whether you like it or not. Amy never curls into a ball like the other characters, so she's literally vulnerable all the time. If you jump, you better follow it up with a hammer spin, because if not, you're getting Simon Belmonted backwards into God knows what. She can use her hammer when she's on the ground as well. Much like Sonic Adventure, she can do like a little hammer swing along the ground, or she can hold the down button, press the B button, and launch into the air a little bit. She also lacks a spin dash for whatever reason, so instead she does these dumb little hops, and if you press the B button again while you're doing the hops, you do like this little slide move, and it's just a big letdown. I don't know, that's kind of one of the worst things about her in my opinion, aside from the not curling into a ball thing. I guess the really only saving grace I could see here is that if she uses the hammer attack in the air, it's a little bit more of a reach than the insta-shield Sonic has, but maybe in the Ice Mountain boss to be pretty useful. Other than that, I don't really see why she's anything more than a hindrance to play as. And I guess Dimps thought so too, since she was changed a lot in Sonic Advance 2. If you actually managed to unlock her, that is. And once you're done with the main game, wouldn't you know it, there's also a side mode featuring one of Sega's greatest creations, the Chao. If you access the tiny Chao garden from the main menu, you can take care of a little virtual pet from within your Game Boy Advance, sort of like a $30 Tamagotchi. You can buy your Chao's toys to play with, or just fruit to eat to increase their stats, and you can also play minigames with them to earn more rings. Understandably though, it was a little lackluster compared to the Chao Gardens of the adventure games, but wouldn't you know it, Sega came around and did something really cool. When Sonic Adventure 2 Battle launched for the Nintendo GameCube, you were able to use the Game Boy Advance GameCube connector cord to transfer your Chao from Sonic Advance to Sonic Adventure 2, or vice versa. This allowed you to take your favorite Chao on road trips and also allowed you to lose them when you misplaced your game cartridge. There were also specific eggs you could only get from the tiny Chao garden, I believe, so if you were able to build up enough rings to get those by playing memory games, then all the power to you. So yeah, that's Sonic Advanced. It spawned 2 sequels, which both improved and detracted from the groundwork Dimps laid out here, and I'll be taking a look at them sometime too, because I've never actually finished 2, and I've never ever played 3, except for like 2 minutes in the first level. Alright, the reviews are in. They liked it! So where could we go from here? How about we make a few things better, and a few things a lot worse. A little over a year after the release of Sonic Team's first ever Nintendo-exclusive Sonic game, the sequel hit shelves, and then a year after that, the third game. Kinda reminds me of the Spyro Trilogy's release schedule, except those were full 3D platformers, therefore a bit more impressive to be released in such a short time frame. Regardless of that though, Sonic Team and Dimps came together once again to give us Sonic Advance 2. I think it's pretty widely accepted that most sequels tend to not be as good as the games that came before them, though there are some exceptions to that rule. Sonic Advance 2 also seems to fit that bill, since I've seen tons of people say that it's the best game in the entire Advance series. Why is that though? I thought Advance 1 was pretty great. Sure, it was a little rough around the edges and it caused some mild childhood trauma, but what more could they do, right? Well, for one thing, the presentation in this game is a lot flashier. I mean, look at that intro sequence! The story also has more of a presence in this game, which is a nice thing, because I do enjoy me a good story. As far as typical Sonic stories go, it is pretty basic, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Why don't we start off with level talk instead? Alright guys, I'm gonna level with you. I think the things that people enjoy most about this game are the levels, because it sure isn't some of the other things that are in this game. Compared to Advance 1, it's like night and day. Whereas in the first game, the platforming elements of Sonic took the reins, Sonic Advance 2 was all about speed. Whether that's a good thing or not is really up to you, but when you play these levels, they will fly by, even if you're not using a flight-capable character. Aside from the level design favoring speed more, they also improved how the characters move through the levels. Every character now has the ability to press the R button and hold a certain direction on the D-pad to launch in that direction, and in most cases, it's extremely satisfying to launch forwards through the levels and keep your momentum even after hitting a spring or running off a ramp. These moves can also be used to reach higher pathways in the levels, or grab hard-to-reach collectibles, but again, we'll talk about those later. Just like Advance 1, Advance 2 has 7 new zones for you to explore, except this time, they all have 2 acts. The 7 zones are then followed by a small boss rush and final boss, and then a unique supersonic fight to top things off. First off, we've got Leaf Forest Zone. It's your typical green Sonic level, except they actually made some kind of effort to make it stand apart from the rest of them. Sure, you can still see some checkerboards here and there, but it's a nice change of pace. Here you'll be running through loops and corkscrews and learning all about the game's new mechanics, like these little rotating things and the ramps. Believe me, you're gonna want to figure these out if you have any desire of reaching the supersonic fight. This might be a good time to talk about the intros and outros to the levels, though. At the start of every level that isn't a boss encounter, your character gets yeeted into action by these things. Yeah, you don't see that at the Olympics. If you press right on the control pad with the right timing, you get a speed boost that'll only occasionally get you killed or damaged. Then, at the end of the stage, you'll speed by these goal poles, and depending on your speed, you'll get more points and your ending animation will look a tad different. I told you, this ain't your grandpa's Sonic Advance. This is all about speed. Even though Act 2 doesn't really change things up that much, the end is where things are switched up a bit. Unlike Sonic Advance 2 doesn't house a boss at the end of its Act 2s, but instead, after you complete Act 2, your character is sent to a boss act. And this is where my problems with this game begin. Every boss in this game, with the exception of one of them, is fought while chasing them down. When I said this game was all about speed, I was not exaggerating. First up, we've got a sequel, The Egg Hammer Tank 2. Yeah, because that worked so well the last time, right? They say this guy has an IQ of 300, but he must have got that from one of those online tests. Look, I've had one of those things tell me I'm a genius too, but I'm pretty sure that's not the case, because I once fell for a Google April Fool's Day prank that had to do with smelling things through your phone or computer. Google knows. Look it up. To give him some credit though, this boss is actually a little bit more threatening than the last one, though not because of the hammer itself. Since you're constantly running in these encounters, the game plays totally different than the main stages. You better find your sea legs quick, because momentum will be your worst enemy here. Once you strike the boss, you get thrown backwards thanks to physics, and if you don't catch yourself using some kind of momentum-saving move, you gotta take the time to sprint all the way back up to the contraption before you're allowed to hit it again. If you're playing as Sonic, this is where his new and improved air dash comes in handy, though. I briefly mentioned it in the last video, but by double-tapping the direction Sonic is facing, he flips through the air and gains some speed. Though in this game, it's been buffed a ludicrous amount. Oh, and it's not like he's not attacking you either, because he is. And after this boss, the combination of his attacks and the annoying change of controls will probably leave you seeing red by the end of the game. For this boss, though, you'll be lulled into a false sense of security, because it isn't all that bad. All you have to do is avoid Eggman's hammer swings, and eventually you'll ruin the Doctor's day and set free the bunny that's been screaming your head off the entire fight. What's this? A new character? That's exciting! And what's more exciting is that we get a small story scene to introduce her as well. This is Cream the Rabbit and her god of destruction, Cheese. We learn that she wasn't just minding her own business when Eggman kidnapped her, but she was actually searching for her mother, who Eggman also kidnapped. Yeah, it really do be like that sometimes, don't it? With that motivation, Cream sets off with Sonic to try and get her back, and teach some bosses the true meaning of fear along the way. So basically, this game operates on Sonic Adventure logic. Once you meet the characters in-game, you're able to head back out to the menu and select them to take on the game as that character instead. When I was a kid, I actually liked this a lot more than Advance, just handing you all the characters on a silver platter, since it felt like I really earned the right to play as the others. Plus, it is really funny to see these guys being whipped around during the boss encounters. I promise you I'm not a bad person. It's not like I ever finished the game though, because like I've said plenty of times in the last review, I was awful at this game. Zone 2 trades in the lush greenery of Leaf Forest for the skin-singeing terror of Hot Crater. What I like about this stage is that in any other game, this stage would have been about going slow and taking your time, sort of like Marble Zone from Sonic 1. But instead, the game stays consistent and speed prevails overall. I know I've mentioned that a lot already, and even though the levels are geared more towards speed, it doesn't really mean this game is a hold right to win type deal. You still need to have the reflexes to take certain paths, and most of the time you're using your special moves to help reach those areas. It is immensely satisfying to maintain your speed for as long as you can and just blow through huge chunks of the stage without stopping. But don't get me wrong, you can play the stages at whatever speed you want. It'll just be more fun if you're barreling through things at a breakneck pace. Not that Sonic has a neck, but you know what I mean. The zone feels a lot like Secret Base from the first game, but less enclosed. Like, for example, you can't do stuff like this in Secret Base. And here comes the Egg Bomber Tank. Very creative, Doctor. This time, Eggman is toting around a giant gun, which is unsurprisingly more effective at beating woodland creatures than a wrecking ball. This boss's sweet spot is a little finicky sometimes. When I went to hit it, occasionally I'd take damage as well, which wasn't super comforting. Its initial pattern is easy enough to work with, but once you enter phase 2 and the cannon bit is gone, it almost feels like there's no pattern anymore and he just shoots when it's the most inconvenient for you. Ain't that the story of my life? After he takes off, you'll notice there's no new character this time. Bummer. And here we are with Zone 3, or should I say the best zone of them all? It's Music Plant Zone. This entire stage is music to my ears. The music is great, the visuals are vibrant and fun, and Sonic and the gang even get to have a little more fun here, bouncing off cymbals and xylophone blocks. This stage is just oozing with charm, and that's something I think the Sonic series has been seriously lacking in lately. When they made this level, they clearly just let loose and threw in a bunch of ideas they thought would be fun, and I can respect that. One thing I wanted to point out too, is that if you look at the level list, you'll notice that the obligatory casino stage isn't here. So Music Plant is the closest thing we get, and I am totally on board with that. Music Plant is also really reminiscent of Rayman's Bandland for me, except it's nowhere near as frustrating, which is great. This stage, man, it's just magical. That's the best way I could describe it. Sure, there's some frustrating enemy placement here and there, but I'm more than willing to forgive that because of how much fun the rest of the stage is. Once you reach the end of it though, you come face to face with the Egg Totem. This weird paddy wagon looking contraption shoots its spiked segments at Sonic, and when they're fully extended, a little turret pops out on either the top or the bottom. You can destroy the turrets with a good few bops, or you can ignore them entirely if you're careful. By using the segments, you can throw yourself at the cockpit, and eventually the segments will start getting quicker because Eggman is getting scared now. Eggman will also start rearranging the segments in an effort to throw you off, but a few more hits and Eggman retreats with his tail between his legs. Tails is then set free from what looks like a super unpleasant ride-along, and now you've got the ability to play as him as well. Tails thanks Sonic for the save as Sonic muses as to what Eggman is up to this time. Gee, Sonic, I don't know, maybe it's the whole turn fuzzy things into metal again. He seems to do that a lot. Sonic being Sonic wastes no time and rushes off, and Tails being Tails follows closely behind. Alright, so for those who have been around for a bit, you might know my policy on ice levels. Ice levels aren't ice levels. Though I do have to break that rule a bit here because surprisingly it's a lot more tolerable than the pure hell that was Ice Mountain Zone. Overall, this zone is another fun one. I really don't have as many problems with the levels as I did last time, but in case you're missing my complaining, don't you worry, I'll be doing plenty of that later. Ice Paradise, great name by the way, has these neat little ice slides, and again, the unique animations found here are a nice touch. Once you're on these things though, you can't control your character anymore aside from jumping, so you'd better be ready to disengage if ever necessary. Arrow Egg? Doctor, you've broken your typical naming scheme. I'm disappointed. Now this thing can either be a bit annoying or pathetically easy. The machine flies ahead of you and drops bombs which explode and threaten to damage you if you don't jump over them. You can strike this boss by jumping at the disc floating behind the machine when it's horizontal. You'll then bounce up and be able to strike the cockpit, or get lodged in there like I did and basically end the fight in a few seconds. No big whoop. If you don't end it quickly though, there is a bit of a big whoop. The bombs start dropping super fast and the disc changes back and forth pretty rapidly, so it's a lot harder to get an opportunity to attack. No character encounter here either. If you hadn't realized by now, we get a new character every other zone, so who will we be seeing next? Alright, so much like Ice Mountain from Sonic Advance, Sky Canyon was the run killer for me as a kid. Only difference between this and Ice Mountain though is that I never beat this one when I was a kid. Yeah, this is where my adventure ended, and not really upset about that because they went crazy with the bottomless pits in the stage. Look at this footage. This is the start of Act 2 and they give zero funnel cakes about my feelings. Also, I died here like 3 times because I find it hard to learn from my mistakes for whatever reason. And it wouldn't be a sky level without a constant reminder that you're in the sky, right? Oh wait, sure it would be. We really didn't need this ridiculous layer of clouds to follow us through the entire zone. The amount of times I thought I was about to fall into a pit and then didn't and had to shelve my last will and testament for later use is honestly more than I'm willing to admit. Just, no. This entire zone is just, no. This should be a textbook example of how to not design a stage. And this isn't even the final level. This is harder than the final level. How did that happen? And it's pretty fitting for a stage that drives me up the wall would also have a boss that does the same. This is the egg saucer, and oh man, is this thing a doozy. And by that, I mean it is not a doozy. Like usual, you're giving chase to this thing, and you know, that's whatever, but this thing has an insta-kill attack. Yeah, so not the final level, and it's the hardest, and not the final boss, and it can just kill you. Aside from the legendary smack of death, it can also give you a regular old smack, and this laser cannon fires an incredibly quick and hard-to-see beam attack. Frustration, thy name is Egg Saucer. Also, Knuckles here is protected by some spikes on the bottom of the cockpit, so you need to strike the top of it, which is almost always certainly guarded by this dang hand. I gotta hand it to Eggman. This is a pretty smart design. Also, yeah, I did say Knuckles, because as you can see, he's not being held captive. The only thing that's being held captive is my suspension of disbelief. When you beat this machine to a bloody pulp, Sonic figures out that Eggman tricked Knuckles. Again! Bro, how many games have we been through together? Like 8? It hurts that you can't just find it in your heart to trust me. I know trust is hard to earn and it's very easily broken, but what have I done to deserve this treatment? Whatever, trust me or don't. Sonic will just keep on running away from what matters most. Knuckles, on the other hand, vows vengeance against the Doctor and follows close behind. Also, Knuckles' eyes are blue in this scene instead of purple. I guess someone really blew it there, huh? Techno bass? More like, tech, no thank you, I'd rather not be here, bass. Zing! Nah, just kidding, this one isn't that bad compared to the last one. Where I praised Music Plant for being bright and colorful, this stage is actually a bit too colorful. It just kinda looks like a mess to me, but the circuit board in the background is sorta neat, I guess. Here, the rails, spikes, and bumpers are all stylized to fit the level, which is kinda neat. Nothing, however, could possibly prepare you for the frustration that follows this stage. Here we have the Egg Go-Round. I really like the names of some of these. They're very creative. Too bad I don't like anything else about them. This boss was forged in the fires of hell, made from the scrap metal of every frustrating boss this series has ever seen since its inception back in 1991. At first glimpse, it doesn't look that bad. Just jump on the platforms to hit Eggman where it hurts. But gosh darn, they had to go and make it as frustrating as Fire Truck. The silver platforms rotate. The gold platforms have spikes that pop in and out of existence. And let's not forget that you're constantly moving towards the thing, which screws up your precise jumping. And there are tiny little projectiles being fired at you that half the time you can hardly see because you're focused on keeping up your speed and not landing on the spikes or being thrown into them after damaging the thing. Just, oh boy. This one really wound me up while I was playing. I just flat out did not have a good time, and it got me wondering again, why put something in a game if it's not fun? I've always wondered that, like, do they just not know when they're making it? Wasn't there anyone playtesting this that said, hey, maybe, you know, instead of doing that with this boss, you could make it, I don't know, fun? Were they all task bots or something? Whatever, shake it off. It's time for Egg Utopia Zone. We're on the home stretch, y'all. Here we come across cannons that shoot Sonic all over the place, spike balls that you couldn't possibly be able to avoid unless you knew the level layout already, and gravity mechanics. Hooray! Getting some serious Cosmic Angel vibes from this one. We also have these poles that you need to jump off of, boosters that throw you forwards, and one thing my eagle eyes noticed here was that there are actually some really nice pixel art recreations of the spinners from Sonic Adventure. So that's neato, burrito. Pretty harmless stage all around. Not sure if I liked it that much, especially because of some of the really rude enemy placement, but at this point, I'm just really glad that I'm not fighting a boss. You just couldn't let me have this one, could you? The egg? Frog? Yeah, okay, whatever. You're the genius. Ugh, guys, I don't like this one either. This time it's all about gravity manipulation, though I didn't figure that out for a solid 10 minutes. Eggman pilots his frog all around the stage, dropping bombs on you, and you need to flip the gravity to avoid the attacks and then play with it to land some hits on the guy. As you hit him, he goes faster and faster, and it's just so not fun. I'm sorry. As a first-time player to most of these fights, they're just so infuriating. Like, maybe after you've played them 10 times a piece, it's a little better, but just, bleh. That's the last thing I'm gonna say on the matter, though. Or, you know, maybe I lied, because before the final boss, how's about we refight every single boss in a boss rush? Yeah! That sounds like something I want to do! Why? I was okay with the boss rush in X-Zone back in the original game because it was 2 throwback bosses and then the final battle. But here we gotta go through 7 bosses. Again! Including the Egg Frog, which we just got finished fighting. Sure, they make things a little bit easier on you by making each boss and their subsequent breakable parts take less hits, but still, I didn't like 90% of these things the first time. So after suffering through all those again, we finally reached the final boss, the Super Egg Robo Z. Weird considering we're in XX Zone, you think it'd be the Super Egg Robo X, but let's be real, Eggman isn't good at naming things. You might notice that Sonic finally gets a chance to rest his whittle legs here, since this boss doesn't actually move. Thank goodness. All you need to do here is avoid his rocket fist attacks, don't get pressed into the spiked ceiling too many times, yep, no crush death here, it has that on Mania at least, and then bash this thing's skull in several times until finally, the quest is over. Kind of. Sonic falls from space as the Egg Utopia causes a massive nuclear disaster in the distance. Sonic lands back in Leaf Forest and chooses to not mourn the losses from the catastrophe in the distance, but instead pose next to some stupid little birds. Out of sight, out of mind, I guess? Oh, but of course that isn't it because we forgot the Chaos Emeralds. Dang, I was looking for those special springs this whole time, but I didn't see any. I did see a lot of these weird rings, though. But I'm sure those don't have anything to do with the special stages. Right? Timps, when I said I liked special rings in my Sonic games, I meant like this. Not this. If you're wondering about the Chaos Emeralds like I was, there are these little rings in each of the stages that'll lead you to your Chaos Emerald. But the kicker is, there's 7 of them. And you need to collect all of them in one life. So you basically need to have memorized the entire level and take the perfect pathway through to even have a chance to see the special stage. Remember how I mentioned things that weren't fun? Well, this is one of them. Do you know how eager I was to collect 7 special rings in Sky Canyon and not die once? I was over the moon zone excited I was. God, I hate everything. Not only is this asking way too much of the player, but it's also really irritating, even if you have a guide. I wasn't about to play Leaf Forest 90 times to solidify the best route through the place, but imagine way back when this game released, there probably weren't any really accessible guides. I couldn't even get through Sky Canyon when I was a kid, let alone search through the entire thing with a metal detector. Honestly, when you're zipping through these levels on a normal playthrough, you might not even realize you're collecting these things, you go by them so quickly. I never thought I'd say this, but at least in Sonic Unleashed, where collecting stupid arbitrary medals is also necessary to finish the game, you have the Werehog segments that are slowed the heck down, so you can actually see these things coming. This is like trying to collect every medal in the daytime stages, except worse, because you can't die, and there's 7 of them. And that's precisely the last time I'll ever give Unleashed any sort of compliment. So you get yourself your 7 special rings, you beat the stage, and bam bam, anger and ham, you find yourself in a special stage. I'd be confident in saying that these are probably the easiest special stages in the entire series, though I can't say that for sure because I only really played the first one. It's not a half pipe, and it's not a rotating maze, it's just a giant flat playground full of rings, and Zero from Sonic Adventure. Just pick up the amount of rings it tells you to at the top while fighting against the super awkward controls, and you get your shiny rock. They needlessly overcomplicated these things this time, and never having played Sonic Advance 3, I'm really hoping that they figured it out. 3rd time's the charm, right? Once you've got all 7 of your emeralds as Sonic, and rebeat the XX Zone, you're treated to a nice scene of some invisible force using the power of Suck to nab yet more animals, and Cream's mom again. The squad rallies up, and seeing Cream cry in front of him, Sonic decides that enough is enough, and he transforms into Super Sonic and flies off. And finally, it's the true conclusion. True Area 53. What does that even mean? What is that name? I bet Eggman named this place. And speaking of Eggman, he then rides up in his brand spanking new True Area 53 boss, or as I like to call it, the Egg Chameleon, and the fight begins. It's definitely more of a supersonic fight than the last game had, at least. Supersonic actually flies around this time, and the goal is to smack these rockets into Eggman's noggin. Eggman will attack you with an ice beam and a suck attack. Just be careful though, because if you get hit by the ice beam, I'm not convinced there's a way to get out. Sonic shimmies a little bit, but no amount of button mashing I did ever spared him the suck. Oh, and if you get caught by the suck attack, it sucks away your rings, and then spits Sonic out squeaky clean, but usually a lot less alive than he was before. Once you're done humoring Eggman, he drops a capsule and it falls down to the earth below. Sonic desperately tries to stop it, but disaster strikes as he reverts back into regular Sonic right as Vanilla and all the flickies are released. Thankfully, there were no land animals in the capsule, or else Sonic would have had to choose who lived and died, and I really don't think that's his call to make. Sonic grabs Vanilla in the nick of time, spins around, landing on his feet like the cat he is, and that's game. What's that? Amy Rose is playable too? Oh, I guess she didn't get the memo about the dang world ending, so she just stayed home. She does decide to show herself, though, after you collect all 7 emeralds with all 4 characters, and you know what, Amy, I like you, but I'm sorry, you ain't worth it. Speaking of characters, though, I figured I'd at least go over a few things before we wrap up. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles are pretty much the same as they were in Advance, with the exception of the new trick moves and Sonic's buffed air dash. Cream, being a totally new character, comes with a totally new moveset. Using her friend Cheese, she can quite literally cheese the game. Look at my time in Sonic's XX Zone, compared to Cream's. 2 minutes! And that's because all you gotta do when fighting these bosses is mash the B button like there's no tomorrow, and even the mightiest warriors will crumble before you. Cream can also fly, and do the flight cancel that Tails lacks. Sure, she can't fly for as long as Tails, but honestly, all her other benefits far exceed anything Tails can do, so just play as Cream. And then there is Amy, if you can manage to unlock her, or just use a 100% save file like I did. And she's totally different from her previous appearance in Sonic Advance, which is nice. She still uses her hammer for a variety of different attacks, but now she has a spin dash and can curl into a ball, which is a welcomed addition, especially if they're gonna make you suffer when trying to unlock her. And we have one last unlockable in the form of the Tiny Chao Garden, this time not available from the start for whatever reason. To unlock it, you need to grab yourself the 7 emeralds as just one character and finish the game. Still not worth it. Just play Advance 1 if you want the Chao stuff. It's almost identical aside from one minigame that honestly is kind of fun, but still it is super not worth it. It sure has been a long time in the making, but here it is, Sonic Advance 3 hot off the presses. Or should I say, red hot off the presses.
Every second of this is going to be painful, isn't it?
Man, I don't know. Maybe now's not the right time for the Sonic Advance 3 video. I could always probably push it off a little bit longer.
Oh no you don't. We've been planning this collab for over a year now. I am not going to let you torture these people any longer.
But it is so fun.
How's that for torture?
Alright, fine. I assume you're ready to go then. Hello everybody, I'm Garrulous64.
And I'm redhotsonic.
And just gonna throw this out there, I was gearing up to do Sonic Advance 3 right after Sonic Advance 2, but there was one comment on that video that reminded me that battle took place between the 2 games. Because of that lovely comment, and then several things that were way out of the control of both redhotsonic and I, this collaboration ended up being pushed back, as you saw moments ago, 16 whole months.
Well, it gave me plenty of time to pick up the accessories to grab footage from real hardware.
See, we weren't just withholding it because we thought it was funny. I mean, not entirely. Though I did appreciate it becoming somewhat of a meme here on my channel. Now, since I've noticed I have a bit of a structure when it comes to these videos, how about we switch things up and start with the story this time? Coming off of Advance 2, some things in this game might confuse you, since much like a certain other series, if you only play the numbered entries, it's only the tip of the iceberg. In the interim between Sonic Advance 2 and Advance 3, a little game called Sonic Battle happened, and if you caught my review of that, you'd know that the story is the main reason to play it in the first place. I won't go too in-depth about it here, but the gist is Sonic and Co meet a wonderful, perfect robotic angel, they raise him, teach him how to be his own person, and he basically becomes best friends with everyone, including Shadow and Rouge. And then, Dr. Eggman forces his base programming back to the surface, and Sonic has to fight Emerald to the death, lest the world be put in peril, the likes of which it had never seen before. So after building up this wonderful character and having him form unbreakable bonds with the cast, he's gone. And at least in my eyes, it's one of the saddest moments this series has to offer. And then, just like in Adventure 2, where Eggman flaunts the corpse of Gamma around like it ain't no thing, the good doctor shows up to the party with this new robot, Gemerald, who, if you didn't notice, bears a striking resemblance to our dearly departed friend. Eggman went and built a new robot using the data that Emerald acquired during his brief life, and now he's using that against all the people he cared about, aside from Shadow and Rouge, since they decided to conveniently not show up for this outing. Kind of a missed opportunity, in my opinion. So yeah, it's times like these where I'm reminded that Eggman is a heinous psychopath that has no problem ripping out the hearts of his foes and dancing on them as they watch.
Meh, don't worry, because except for the mini battles with the cyborg, he doesn't pose too much of a threat in the main story. And when I say story, I mean there really isn't much of a plot. Eggman has an emerald, Sonic and Tails do not like that one bit, the duo runs into action while showing a bit too much of their behind, and stops the madman from acquiring the ultimate power. Done. So, how does the adventure begin? Well, with the introduction to a hub world, of course. Now, I'm not a fan of hub worlds. I rather just get straight to the point as it does in prior advanced games, but it's not too hard to navigate the locations of the acts. These areas exist because you can find portals to mini-games, or if you're lucky, a missing Chao, but we'll get to that later. The mini-games consist of destroying badniks or opening egg prisons as fast as you can. It's just an opportunity to possess more lives for your main journey. There's a big ring located at the entrance of each hub world, which gives you the freedom to check your progress, such as how many Chaos or Emeralds you've collected. You also get to change your characters here. Note, I said characters, as this game introduces a tag team feature. Firstly, pick the protagonist you want to control, and then a sidekick to aid you in multiple ways. And this isn't simply a follower like the classic days, each partner has their unique uses.
If you pair up Sonic and Tails, Sonic plays exactly like he should, and the opposite is also true for Tails. The problems arise when you pair up Sonic with literally anyone else. Instead of just changing the special action like they should have done, the main character's moveset changes in its entirety. If you pair up Sonic and Amy, Sonic looks all upset on the character select screen, but it's not because he has to hang out with Amy, it's actually because he becomes just as terrible as Amy was in Sonic Advance 1. And on the flip side, Amy actually gets better if she's the primary character in the pair, so honestly, it's a bit of a mixed bag. Not gonna mince words here, the only pair worth playing as is Sonic and Tails, and everyone else is either terrible or unnecessary.
I have a feeling you're going to get some comments about that one.
Another great example of this is if Red and I were selected as a pair, he might be able to make more puns than normal, but he also might lose 90% of his attention span.
What?
Hey, don't worry about it.
Depending on your sidekick, your main player can do different techniques while airborne by tapping the R button. They can perform a swirl boost, a slam attack, or a desperate grab for more airtime. You can perform these off of springs, from launchers, and you can even do this in multiplayer.
Red, wait, think about the repercussions.
Whoa! Did that actually work?
Do you have any idea how expensive a plane ticket home is going to be? Speaking of the multiplayer, this game joins the rank of the Sonic games that allow a second player to join in on the action. More impressive than that though, this is the only title I know of that actually gives player 2 their own screen, much like Sonic 4 Episode 2 should have done, since what's the point of having official online multiplayer and 2 screens if you don't use both screens? Questionable decisions, thy name is Sega.
And now that you know how the game plays, what do you say we discuss the stages we'll be attempting within Sonic Advance 3?
Alright, cool, great idea. Why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Oh, great, thanks. Trust you to give me the... Wait, this isn't a Green Hill lookalike. We've been honoured with a totally original level? It's a miracle! We've been thrown into a city which appears to be under construction given the amount of girders, corkscrews, pulleys and hazardous blocks about. Even the grind rail appeals to the aesthetics, which while we're here, you can now start to scrape along these bars from any point along its path, rather than being forced to start from the beginning. While there are definitely plenty of chances for platforming, a lot of speed can be picked up within this stage, giving you the feeling that this is a Sonic game indeed. This zone has a lot of wide open areas too, to demonstrate that the physics have been tweaked since its precursor. Compared to that, air resistance has been dramatically decreased, which at first it did throw me off, but I got used to it pretty quickly, and I actually ended up appreciating it. I was speeding along these acts without much issue, and then I got to the boss act, which consists of a very easy battle with Jamal, as he hasn't learned a damn thing yet. And then you get to the main event, Dr. Eggman. Pretty easy stuff. He tries to slam you, you move as he's about to attack, slap him a few times, he's toast.
Wow, Red, your footage looks really good. What emulator are you using?
Emulator? This is real hardware, mate. Well, technically, using the Game Boy player with Extreme's interface, captured 6 times its native resolution at an integer scale, while using my Game Boy Advance as the controller. This is the ultimate way to enjoy any Game Boy Advance game. How about you, Garrulus?
MGBA? Dips must have really gotten an earful about their lack of fulfilling the Green Hill quota in Sonic Advance 2, so here we are in Sunset Hill Zone. Not sure if it's Green Hill when the sun's getting ready for a snooze, or a totally different location that perpetually exists at sunset, but we do get a bumpin' remix of the original Green Hill theme that only gets better as the acts go on. It's in this stage that the signature Dimp's Bottomless Pit obsession returns in full force.
There's a lot of pits here, so
Oh good.
beware. What did I just
I
say?
found one!
What did I just say?
I hate this!
That's one for the bloopers.
God. And I think my thoughts while playing the game sum up my feelings towards this pretty well. Like, after playing Mania, like a really solid 2D Sonic game, like, seeing so many bottomless pits in older Sonic games is just real sad. There are plenty ways to punish the player for messing up aside from straight up killing them.
Again, that's your own fault.
Why is there a pit there, though? After all, wasn't that the point of the lower paths in the classic Sonic games? Other than the pits, this stage reinforces the, for lack of a better term, weird level design. After playing this whole thing, it sort of feels like a fusion of Advance 1 and Advance 2, which makes it really hard for it to stand on its own, and it ends up feeling awkward as a result. At the end of Act 3, Gemerald squares up again, and the battle is almost exactly the same, aside from it getting a little bit harder. Get used to this setup, since you'll be refighting this guy a ton. Not sure why he's in Act 3 this time, though, since usually he's in the boss act. After taking out your frustrations on that faker, Knuckles drops down from the nest he no doubt built himself in the palm trees right above the battlefield and decides that now it's time to help. Thanks for stepping in when we needed you most, pal. Now, the real boss of this zone seems like it wouldn't be too much trouble. Tails, could you get that ring? No? Okay, we're dead.
Nope, you're dead.
Yeah, we're dead.
I mean, go Garrus, I have complete faith in you. You're dead.
I was like,
Nice
he's gonna
one.
come charging down any second now. Here
I
he
saw
comes.
that coming.
Unless, of course, you're me, in which case, you got no chance. In actuality, though, it's easy to bully the heck out of this boss, and it poses virtually no threat whatsoever. Alright, Red, tag back in. I really think we're on a roll with this one.
Well, I'm not sure how we managed to roll into Eggman's ocean base, but I don't appreciate being unfairly squished within 30 seconds of playtime. Then we have the Sandopolis Sandfalls to climb. I'm not going to lie, I'm not fond of this stage. There are too many chances of getting flattened, and a fair few waiting games to play on these scripted platforms. While I admit there are some locations to have a good run, the pace has conclusively dropped from here. It's all touch and go. With the slides and even water being present, this place is just too dreary for me. I know, that's the point within Eggman Space, and I have no complaints at the graphical presentation, but I just wanted to get out of here. When you do get to the scientist, I don't get his plan here. He hovers over you and then drops down to say hi, where you get to hit him. That's it. On the odd occasion, he'll close his claws and produce a hurtful wave along the floor, but he didn't do that once when I went against him. I guess the RNG was on my side. If I can give one positive note, the music to this level is bumping, especially Act 2. I could listen to that with my earphones all day.
Yeah, hi, this is what it's like for a first-time player. Just gonna drop this right here real quick. Oh. Jesus, Dip, stop! Come on! I can only take so much of this stuff!
You were just begging to
God,
get squished.
kidding me, dude! I can't believe what just happened! That was like 3 close calls in a row! I don't know what my thought process was, but they sure do toy with you in this game, and oh, actually, that's a really great segue. Toy Kingdom feels like they wanted to do Music Plant again, except they forgot to make it fun. It's a mess of weird gimmicks, bottomless pits, blocks that'll crush your dreams, and tails, and these elephant slides. Wait, so if I just let it go, it just does it?
Yeah,
Dude, this is fucking stupid!
Good boy.
They really liked these elephant slides. Visually, of course, it's a great change of pace from the last 2 zones, but gameplay is the thing that matters most to me, and it was slow and boring with only occasional glimpses of fun buried behind confusing level design and gimmick overload. I think that sentence actually describes how I feel about a majority of the game now that I think about it. The boss of this zone is one of those things that I won't soon forget, but not because it was a good time. Are you? Why is there a pit there? You've gotta be fucking kidding me.
Get to the boss. Nice.
Look at him looking at me. He's like, oh, it worked. I might make a save state here so I don't have to get the game over again.
Oh no!
I don't want.
Yeah, make save states. Do yourself a favor.
I'm gonna cry. On the contrary, the Jack-in-the-Box boss is at least unique, if you think recycling the Ghost Pot boss from Yoshi's Island is unique, that is. Every time you hit it, it gets pushed backwards until it falls into the pit on the other side of the arena. The problem I had with this one was more of a personal issue. It was just taking too long, so I'd get impatient and then end up getting myself killed in stupid ways. I hope so.
You absolute plonker.
I thought I had a lot more space than that. This is one of those instances where it's definitely not a bad boss fight, I'm just a bad player. That's not to say that the game doesn't have some questionable design choices though, specifically with badnik placement. I'm sure redhotsonic has something to say about that.
Chill out, G. Let's cool things down as we talk about, good lord, what is happening here. It's Twinkle Snow, of course, with the Northern Lights putting on a show. While the foreground has more crystallized stones and ice blocks about more than snow, I didn't find this stage to be all that bad. It relieves all the frustration I've had up until now with its calming yet upbeat music. Though momentum has also picked up here, while still balancing the number of rails, dash hoops and platforms. Oh, and there's water. Again. I really did not enjoy that badnik placement while I was trying to gasp for air. Thanks for that! I don't ever remember these bad enemy placements 16 years ago. And then there's the boss. Now, the premise is very simple. Climb the tower and make the platforms bonk Eggman on the noggin, all while very occasionally avoiding the good old spike ball on a chain move. Classic. There's just one tiny issue here. Make one mistake and you're dead. The bottomless pit is always under you.
This boss cost me 20 minutes of my life, and then I watched Red beat it first try in less than 30 seconds. I know we previously established that I'm bad at this game, but this boss still sucks, and I am not budging on that one. No, Sonic, please! I was so close! And another thing, I love it when Sonic Team brings in these cyber aesthetic levels, but this has to be one of the worst looking ones by far. The foreground is passable, it just really looks like a generic techno level, but the background doesn't even look finished. Or actually, it looks like if I scanned it with a barcode reader. Huh, who would have thought? Not me, I totally love this game. As a first-time player, this stage was the only instance where I actually changed my character combination. Using Tails and Sonic, I tried to make the stage as easy as I could for myself, but thanks to its slow gimmicks and confusing design, yet again, it still took forever to get through. You just get thrown around the stage using these futuristic Donkey Kong Country barrels so often that none of the level leaves an impact, and it's always hard to tell where you're supposed to go next. Also, there's a bit here with these moving platforms that you need to activate and keep track of, and all I could think of was that one level from Super Mario World, and it wasn't even a good level in that game, so not an awesome place to draw inspiration from. And the boss? Oh my god, the boss. It reminds me a little bit of the first boss of the old and inferior Crash Bandicoot 4, where you had to hit the stones so they'd attack Crunch. Except in this fight, you only need to reflect one back at the Mad Doctor to deal damage. The problem with that is, he moves just fast enough so that you have to dance revolution around the entire platform like an idiot hoping to get a hit on him. These platforms on the sides might also get you killed because of your partner too, since if you stand on them for a second, they plunge you into the pit below, and your partner can also trigger them. I had a heart attack because of this when I finally beat the boss, since I landed on one of the platforms, and I'll just let this clip speak for itself. No, 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 please, please. Don't, please, please don't, please, please don't, please, please, please do not die, please, 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 please. The amount of stress this game gave me during my playthrough is ludicrous. But as we've seen, this game can either be your angle or your devil, but in this case, I guess it'd be your chaotic angle. God, I'm so tired of it. Red, just talk about this so it can be done. I'm sick of this game's bullshit.
Ah, my favourite zone. Why, you ask? I don't know, actually. But I loved it back in the day that I even put it in my own ROM hack, Sonic 2 Recreation. I even mimicked the Act 3 travel platform, which I still love that idea to this day. As long as you know when to jump, you'll be alright.
Yet another Mario-y gimmick tossed into the game. I'm pretty sure they used this trope at least one time in every single new Super Mario Bros. Game.
Nonetheless, it's a welcome relief over Act 1 and 2, to be honest. Oh goodness, Act 1 and 2. Prepare to go up, down and all around with plenty of hazards, stupid badnik regions, multiple crushing walls, collapsing platforms, death pits, it's all here folks. And you'll be experiencing this for around 5 minutes on both acts. Joyful. These ancient ruins will give newcomers nightmares for weeks. But yet again, all is forgiven for its kick-ass melody, especially Act 3 with its tempo and bass. It's serious stuff. The boss here has changed its hitbox and is the only boss where you actually have to hit Jamerl to cause damage. Doing so will fling Eggman to the spikes hidden off screen. It took me a while to figure that out, but otherwise it's pretty easy. Right, Garrulus?
Yeah, I totally didn't have trouble with this one too. I'm at least glad that they ditched the constantly moving bosses from SA2 for these stationary ones, but damn, first time through, they are less than a doozy. Watching Red play this game makes it very clear he's played it dozens of times before, because every issue I'm seeing as a new player is almost non-existent. But my stance on that is if I didn't enjoy it the first time, I'm not going to waste more time playing it so that I can get good. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. The game should have just been designed better, like, you feel it? And that's all the levels, and I wish we were done, but we're not because Chaos Emeralds. But Dylan, I hear you say, I haven't seen a single special spring, medal, or anything. How do you access the special stages this time? Well, dear viewer, I am so sorry to have to deliver the bad news, so I won't, and instead I'll let redhotsonic from the past do it. Can't blame me now.
You gotta find all the Chao. There's 3 in each act. Act 3 and 1, 3 and 2, 3 and 3. And then there's 1 in the warp room. Once you get all 10, then you got to do it any other act again. Find the key. Then once you grab the key, you go into the warp room and you find the spring, which unlocks the spring, and then you try the special stages. It's the shittest way I've ever done it. You thought Sonic Advance 2 was bad for getting the special stages. They just made it even worse. Didn't they?
I can't believe what you just said just now. That sounds.
I hope you recorded my voice. Just put that in there as it is.
Now, I don't think I need to tell you why that's stupid, but I will anyway. First off, if you don't find the levels enjoyable, you're not going to want to look high and low for these little lost smurfs. Second of all, there are way too many Chao to find on top of having to find the key afterwards. Third, the game doesn't tell you how to do this, and I know the classic games don't fill you in on this either, but with this many steps, there should definitely have been something in-game to explain it to you without having to check the manual. And finally, the only thing you get for this is access to the final boss and this little pointless Chao Garden-like area where you can see all the Chao you found. It's not worth it. This game is just a giant medley of terrible decisions, and I'm sorry if you don't like hearing that, but I don't understand how they could have been this obtuse while designing this game.
Well, if I can say one positive, is that once you found a Chao, he's yours for good. You don't have to find them all in one go, and you can even turn off the handheld and find the rest another day if you like. Which means, in a way, it adds more playability to the game. This also applies to the keys. Once you have it, it's yours until you use it. And when you do unlock the spring, you get sent inside some dome arena or something. I don't know. I assume the floor is made of lava also, as your partner will pilot the tornado, while you avoid bombs and collect the specified ring quota to obtain the gem. You know, your typical rule set for Sonic special stages. Find all 7 Chaos Emeralds, and you get to become super annoyed that you still can't be Supersonic in the levels. Was it really worth that effort? Well, if you want the true ending, then that's what you're going to need to do. Jamal learns a thing or two from Knuckles and knocks all of the emeralds out of Sonic's pocket to become Dispenser Jamal. Seriously, I'm not sure what he's meant to be. Sonic then magically tells the emeralds to come back and obtains their positive power to become super, and then he and Eggman form an alliance to give chase. Non-aggression. Quite a suitable name actually, I'll give him that. While Jamal tries to zap and slap you, Sonic charges Eggman's pod with an energy punch to wake up the boss. With his eye wide open, just dash into him with Sonic, and after several hits, Jamal goes down like a bag of sugar.
The fight really wasn't that bad. I always like me a good hero and villain team-up, and this is no exception. Honestly, I hope Eggman was really embarrassed having to work with Sonic like this. Serves him right for flaunting Emerald's doppelganger around like that. After Sonic and Eggman defeat Gemerald, he falls back down to Earth, and something mysterious happens to Sonic. Suddenly, he's back on the planet's surface, totally unconscious, surrounded by his friends. As he wakes up and everyone celebrates, Eggman can be seen flying away in the background. They don't flat out explain what happened, but my theory is that Sonic might have reverted back from his super form early, and being regrettably thankful for Sonic's help in defeating his rogue robot, Eggman delivered him back down to the surface safely before making tracks for his base. I'd say maybe he isn't such a bad guy after all, but he's still responsible for Emerald's death, so I cannot give him a pass.
You're really hung up on that, aren't you?
He was a perfect metal cinnamon roll that did not deserve what he got. At least Gemerald ends up getting reprogrammed by Tails in the end. He's not the same robot he used to be, but perhaps someday Emerald will find his way back. After all, Sega hasn't forgotten about him. He's made appearances in both Archie Sonic and IDW Sonic, and I can already see some of his old self shining through. Well, I think that just about covers it, right? Last thoughts on this one? I know y'all were waiting a really long time for this video, and I'm sorry if it's not the opinion you wanted me to share, but I can't just look past all the flaws this game has. On top of that, I really wish they had gone more in depth with the story with this one. Being a direct sequel to Sonic Battle, there is so much they could have explored and included. At the end of the day, the only saving grace I had for this entire playthrough was that it was a lot of fun to play the game alongside my friend Red. He hadn't asked me to do this collab last March. I don't know if I would have even been able to finish the game without flat out wanting to quit. So I really appreciate you coming along on this adventure with me, buddy. It was a great time despite how stressful the playthrough was.
Aw, thanks mate. And I was really looking forward to reliving this game again, as I loved it back in the day. But as I've matured and experienced the game another time round, it has really opened my eyes to the questionable amount of enemy placements. I don't ever recall bumping into so much peril as I did in my childhood, and to me that's the biggest letdown, as it breaks its velocity.
Well, it's finally done, so I mean, geez, it feels like a weight's been lifted off my shoulders, and you know, now that I'm here, would you mind if I put something on your letterboard real quick?
Fine, just this once though.
Rad. Alright, close your eyes.
Do you want to slap?
I sense that I might have overstayed my welcome, so I gotta go.
Yeah, and I'm going to destroy this so I don't ever accidentally call you here again. Ugh.
Gee, okay, I hope that was worth the wait. If you liked the video and you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe, click the bell, follow my Twitter, and join the Discord for more Sonic reviews and other things that aren't Sonic reviews, because we do a lot of things. Also, remember to do all of those things for Red Hot Sonic as well. All of his social medias and channel can be found in the description.
Yes, thank you ever so much for having me on. I also feature a few Sonic reviews on my channel, but the biggest series is called But Does It Work on Real Hardware? It's where I try people's ROM hacks or official prototypes on the consoles they were designed for. Everyone has an emulator at their disposal, but do you know if Sonic Megamix, Sonic Classic Heroes, or any of the Sonic Extreme prototypes work on the original hardware? That's my job to present to you guys.
Alright, back in the present day now. I hope you guys enjoyed this trip down memory lane. I had a really good time rewatching these actually, so I hope you did as well. And of course, now that we're in the modern day, I'd like to give a shout out to my current supporters, who are Super Mario Bros. The Channel, Kaido the Samurai, Danny Lee Dauber, Mike TGC, Chaotic Mercenary, Jacoby May, Raiden Still Plays, Crystal, PM13, Crazy Sean DX, Chaos, Ty Little Tech Guy, Zealous Indolent, Jeremy, Lucas the Tall Man, and Mega Traffic Cone. Huge thank you also to the people who are supporting in the $1 tiers. Remember, even $1 helps and gets you access to a whole bunch of bonus stuff, such as blooper episodes or the Sonic Advance 3 full playthrough highlights video that can be found over in the Discord. For supporters only, of course. Thank you guys so much for the continued support for all these years, and I hope you have a good one. I'll see you all next time.